Over the last 600 videos, I've been struggling to formulate a single sentence that communicates the sum essence of crypto and Cardano. This is it. The sovereign's dominion over the money is born only of illusion. Ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to discuss the illusion of sovereign control over money, Ethereum lamenting poor design decisions that Cardano's already fixed, a new version of Lace already out, a reminder on lobster traps, and a few notes from Stan Drunkenmiller. If you like your fiat like you like your dates, illusory and self-contained inside holographic cubes, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. You might remember this crypto scorecard that we looked at a bit ago. This basically ranks all of the senators and all of the representatives in the House of Representatives in the US Congress from best on crypto, that'd be up here with the A scores, and worst on crypto. So, of course, in the Senate, we have the Dragon. Dragon, definitely the worst. In fact, she was the only one to get an F. She deserves it. In the House, who is the worst? Up here, we have the A's. We know who some of those people are. We come all the way down here to the bottom. Again, only one representative gets an F. It's Brad Sherman. And guess who was in the news today? Yep, that's right. It's Brad Sherman. And he had this to say.
Crypto bros make money literally by making money, and they've made over $1 trillion out of thin air. They'll accuse the U.S. government of making money out of thin air. Maybe we do, but we're the U.S. government.
Okay, you can tell by the look on his face right here that he knows what he just said. It just dawned on him how ridiculous that sounds. Even this guy in the background, look at the guy in the background. He's like, Brad, please, Brad. This guy over here is like, oh, this is just Brad. Brad does this kind of stuff all the time. But Brad's like, man, I did it again. I said something ridiculous. Everybody's going to know. They're going to put, the crypto bros are going to put clips of this up on their crypto bro videos. He knows already what's going to happen. Because his short little blurb there just highlighted something very important. There isn't really any good reason why the sovereign should be in charge of minting the money. And actually, there's a really good reason why the sovereign shouldn't be in charge of minting the money. That's because probably since the beginning of time, kings, rulers, dictators, sovereigns, governments, they always succumb to the temptation to debase the currency to pay off their debts. And whoever's in charge is always running up a debt. It's just too complex, I guess. I was going to say, I don't know why they can never, run at a surplus. I guess the ordering of human societies is just too complex. And the vast majority of the time, they are constantly running up a debt. And the way they always solve this is by debasing the currency. And that is exactly why the money should not be in the hands of the government. This, I think, is the most important thing about crypto. The sovereign's dominion over the money is born only of an illusion. It's this illusion we've all accepted for a long time that the government should be in charge of the money. And I mean, originally there was probably good reason for that. Prior to the US government leaving the gold standard, it made sense. When there was some boundary, some restriction that didn't allow the infinite debasement of the currency, maybe it made sense because the government is often the most stable thing a society can muster. Sometimes they're the least stable thing also in some jurisdictions, but sometimes the government is the most stable thing. It's the most stable entity you could imagine putting in charge of the money. And if there's some boundary, if there's some wall that keeps them from doing the debasement of the currency thing, it kind of makes sense. But the second there is no boundary, there is no wall, when you get in this world when the central banks can just sort of on a whim decide to debase the currency, conveniently making it much, 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 much easier for the government to control its rising debt levels. When you get into that realm, all of a sudden, the government may be the worst entity to be in charge of the money. You look at crypto as an alternative. What do we have? We have an algorithm which controls the issuance of the money. In the case, so far at least, of good cryptocurrency blockchain ecosystems, generally algorithms that couldn't be thwarted, couldn't be defeated. I mean, Bitcoin's been around over a decade now, and nobody's been able to figure out how to game Bitcoin to issue more Bitcoin per block than it's supposed to. Of course, since the early days of crypto, we've gone far, far beyond that initial goal of just creating an ultra hard money. We've added programmability, and along with that programmability, a lot of architectural design type decisions had to be made. And the first blockchain to add significant levels of programmability, it seems like a lot of the proponents of that blockchain are already questioning, they're already lamenting some of those design decisions, and a lot of those problems have already been solved by Cardano. Here is a huge thread of things that this poster thinks have just been included in EVM blockchains because they were included in Ethereum originally. He makes a point, hey, you can treat native gas tokens and other tokens the same. You don't need to treat them totally differently. And in Cardano, of course, we have Cardano native tokens. I think there's a whole bunch of other points in here. He has like something like 15 or something, but I want to come down here to 11 because I think this is the other very, very important one. I think people are sleeping on how important it is that Cardano has native tokens, but I think this is also very important. This is something I have talked about a lot, but he says MEV, minor extractable value. Now they like to use the euphemism maximal extractable value to make it sound good. MEV is also solved in newer blockchain designs. Let's remove the leader's ability to reorder and inject transactions. Any backrunning profits are captured, and then he goes on to explain that. Any MEV outside liquidations is just bad order routing. Yeah, MEV is bad. It was never good. It was never a good thing. Calling MEV maximal extractable value and pretending like it's a feature, not a bug, is 100% the wrong direction. I'm glad in Cardano, different design decisions were made so that the sandwiching of transaction didn't feature as sort of a marquee element in our blockchain ecosystem. Now that we're in the Ethereum 2.0 era, I think a lot of users are kind of looking around asking, is this it? Is this what we waited all this time for? Because a lot of the same problems that were already cropping up in Ethereum 1.0, they're still there because they're kind of baked into the architecture. They're difficult to solve, like this MEV problem. Meanwhile, over here in Cardano, we just keep rolling out good things, like another version of Lace already. Charles and IOG told us that the initial version of Lace was kind of just a minimum viable product and that there would be many more quick iterations of Lace. And here we are already. We've already got a new version. They say, since we began our Web3 journey with Lace 1.0, we listened to your feedback. Lace 1.1 has sparkling new features such as support, in case you forgot your password, 12 to 15 word recovery phrases, and balances viewable in multiple fiat currencies. Try it now. So I hope this trend continues and they just keep giving us more and more features in Lace. Okay, guys, I wish I didn't have to mention this again, but these meme coins, and I think if you've been around this channel, you know what I'm about to say. But for anybody new, let me just say it really quickly one more time. Your ADA are like little lobsters playing around on the ocean floor, playing little lobster games, doing lobster things, having a great time down there on the bottom of the ocean. And then your lobster sees something that looks like a cave, a nice, warm, cozy cave. And your lobster thinks, oh, I could go in there. There's going to be good things inside that cave. It's just a cave. What's wrong with me going into a cave? All the other lobsters are going into this warm and cozy looking cave. I'll just go in there. And then you let your lobster go into that cave. Your little ADA lobsters, they all kind of scurry into that cave because that's where all of the other little ADA lobsters are going. They were all playing fun lobster games, and now they're all headed toward this inviting looking little cave. All the other lobsters are going there. So you think, oh, I'll just let my 8 lobsters go in there too. Then they all congregate together. They all centralize in that inviting looking lobster cave. And then all of a sudden, they all realize it wasn't ever a lobster cave. It was something else, because they start getting hoisted out of the water. All of a sudden, the whole cave is moving. They're going upwards. And before they know it, they're on a boat. They have lost their freedom, never to be seen again, because that was never a lobster cave. That was a lobster trap. You got trapped because the cave, as inviting and warm and friendly as it looked, and even with all the other lobsters going into it, it was never a good place to go. It was always a lobster trap. Don't let your little Ada lobsters go into these lobster traps. Don't let your Ada lobsters go anywhere. Just let them continue to be free out there on the ocean floor, playing little lobster games. Don't centralize your little Ada lobsters anywhere. Don't put them anywhere. Keep them on your hardware wallet. Don't give them to anyone else who promises you some kind of return. Here's a whole list of, apparently meme coin rug pulls. When I look at this list, I notice that not all of these are actually confirmed rug pulls. Probably some of them are. I think this whole thing is so ridiculous. I don't even keep track of which one of these are confirmed rug pulls. I'm sure some of them are and some of them are not, but there's a huge amount of activity around all of these Cardano meme coins. And surely some of them will turn out to be either accidental or purposeful lobster traps. So be careful. Even if all the other little Ada lobsters are headed into one supposed lobster cave that looks inviting, it may be a lobster trap. Don't let this happen. Don't centralize your lobsters in one spot. You are likely, or possible in some cases, to lose them. Probably likely in some, possible in others. Some of these are pretty funny. I will admit it, but I still would never buy them, because you don't know which ones of these are going to turn out to be lobster traps. I've always found it useful to keep macro at least slightly on your radar for purposes of crypto. And one of the macro commentators I've often found compelling is Stanley Drunkenmiller. Here's a good thread with a bunch of recent quotes from Drunkenmiller. He says, "I'm sitting here staring in the face of the biggest and probably the broadest asset bubble, forget that I've ever seen, but that I've ever studied." You'll probably remember, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, there was a big narrative around the bubble of everything, maybe even longer ago than that, maybe 24, 36 months ago. But Stanley Drunkenmiller is very much on that train. And I personally find this to be pretty persuasive. I haven't been able to convince myself of an argument otherwise. He also seems to believe that we should cut entitlements to seniors now as opposed to later. These are things like Social Security. I think everybody's known for a long time that while we have the money to pay Social Security in the US now, we certainly will not have it in the future. He thinks we need to just cut it now. He also says, if we get into a hard landing, are we finally going to allow creative destruction and capitalism to do its thing? I think if we do, we'll have a chance. And what's made America great for 200 years could possibly revive us. If you listen to the actual audio in this interview, he points out, we've only had a couple of soft landings since 1950, when things like the kinds of things that are going on now are going on. And he says the times we've had the soft landings, it hasn't been because we were engaged in reactive monetary policy. We sort of planned things out ahead of time. So he's indicating that he thinks it's even less likely we have a soft landing this time. And he's saying kind of an Austrian School of Economics sort of thing here when he says, hey, if we do have a hard landing, why don't we just allow creative destruction? I mean, that's kind of necessary for capitalism. Why don't we allow the things that should fail? Why don't we allow them to fail? And then we can revive the economy. We can allow the sick and ailing things to fail, and there will be some suffering, but then we can come back to revive the economy and we'll be stronger than ever, instead of constantly nursing these sick patients, allowing them to survive and linger. Why not just let them perish, get rid of these weak elements of the economy, these weak sectors and entities, and move forward with the strong things. And he's sort of echoing this kind of sentiment that he sees, at least, as having had a massively positive impact for the U.S. in the early 1980s. He says Volcker intentionally threw us into a recession. We had a horrible recession in 82, big increase in unemployment, but you know what? Reagan won 49 states in 84. We got 20 to 30 years of prosperity. We took the pain and we cleaned up our act. What do you think the chances are that the current administration, or even whatever administration comes next, would agree with this? I honestly think this is probably the right path. This would be the right thing to do. Take our medicine, take the pain, take the increase in unemployment, and then, after we've suffered a little bit, move on to prosperity. But I think chances are very low that at this point in 2023, 2024, 2025, that we see that kind of Volcker moment. I don't think in this era that we are able to accomplish this again. Finally, today at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there is going to be a Cardano analyst call hosted by Masari. And it's going to feature both Charles and Frederik, the CEO of IOG and the CEO of the Cardano Foundation. What more could you ask for? I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.